What do you do when a child looks up at you? With your eyes. When you see yourself, 5 years old and full of questions, sitting beside the woman you once promised forever? And what if that child is your son, and you never even knew he existed? For Malcolm Reed, the question arrived not in a courtroom or a hospital, but under the golden autumn light of Princeton University's auditorium, moments before he was set to deliver the most important speech of his life. On paper, Malcolm had everything. Billionaire, visionary, founder of EduLift, the ed-tech empire that redefined learning for over 200 million users worldwide. Princeton's youngest, alumnus of the year. A tech darling with a mansion in Tribeca, private chefs, and a calendar booked out by presidents and CEOs. And yet, none of that prepared him for this moment. Because as the applause swelled and the announcer called his name, Malcolm stepped onto the stage, looked into the audience, and saw a ghost. A woman, a boy, Amara Taylor, and beside her, a child. Light brown skin, curly hair, a blazer slightly too big for his frame, fiddling with a juice box and whispering about dinosaurs. Malcolm froze mid-step. No one else noticed. Not yet. But his chest tightened, his vision blurred, and for a second he forgot how to breathe. Because that boy had his eyes, and his exact dimple, and the same nervous tapping of his right foot. It wasn't just resemblance. It was replication. That child wasn't just some stranger's kid. That was his son, a son he never knew, a son Amara had never told him about. The spotlight felt like fire. The heat from the stage lights mixed with the ice running through his veins. Cameras flashed. Applause faded into murmurs. The dean smiled expectantly. Malcolm tried to swallow, but his throat was sand. Was this some kind of punishment? Some delayed karma for the choices he made 7 years ago? The long hours, the silence, the way he let his mother tear his marriage apart piece by piece. He looked down at his speech, neatly printed, triple-spaced. A TED-worthy monologue about perseverance and growth. But the words blurred into static. Worthless. He looked up again. Amara hadn't changed much. Her hair was shorter now, curls framing a face that still radiated calm brilliance. But there was no smile, no acknowledgement. Just guarded resolve as she placed a hand gently on the boy's shoulder. His shoulder. How many birthdays had he missed? How many stories had someone else read? What do you say to a child you've never met, but would give your life for? Mr. Reed, the dean whispered behind him. Is everything all right? Malcolm stepped to the podium. Thousands of eyes watched. Phones recorded. Somewhere, his mother was front row, smiling for the cameras like nothing had changed. But everything had. He cleared his throat. I had a speech prepared, he said, his voice shaky at first, but steadying. The crowd fell still, but something happened. Just now, something that reminded me. Success isn't measured by headlines or funding rounds or applause. He paused. It's measured by who's still holding your hand when the applause fades. He looked at Amara, and at the boy with his dimple. He didn't need to say it out loud. But the cameras caught his eyes. And somewhere, deep in his soul, he knew. This wasn't the end of his speech. This was the beginning of everything else. Malcolm Reed used to believe life moved in straight lines. Input, output, reward. It was the only way a kid from Trenton, raised by a single mom who worked night shifts at the post office, could make sense of a world that never gave second chances. But nothing about Amara Taylor had ever been linear. She was the exception. The curveball. The one person who made him question the rules he lived by. They met freshman year in a crowded computer science lecture where Malcolm sat in the back, hoodie up, avoiding eye contact. She was front row, answering questions, challenging the professor, smiling like she belonged there even if the room didn't want her to. He noticed her first because of her laugh. He remembered that clearly now. Standing on stage, staring out at her 10 rows away, the echo of that laugh ringing in his memory like a warning bell. Back then, they'd both been scholarship kids, outliers in a sea of legacy surnames and private school pedigrees. They'd bonded over long hours in the computer lab, cheap ramen dinners, and the shared understanding of what it meant to hustle while everyone else inherited. Their love had been quiet but fierce. A fire without smoke. No grand declarations, just slow, persistent gravity pulling them toward each other. By junior year, they were inseparable. He remembered walking across the lawn on a spring night, hand in hers, joking about who would land a startup deal first. He promised her they'd build something together. She didn't want the spotlight, just partnership, respect, a shared future. But the cracks had already begun forming. Malcolm's app, still just a prototype then, started attracting attention from investors. He began disappearing into pitch meetings, networking events, long weekends in New York with venture capitalists. And then came the whispers, from faculty, mentors, eventually from his own mother. You need to focus. She's not built for your world. She'll hold you back. He never said he believed them out loud. But he didn't push back either. The wedding was small. A winter courthouse ceremony. No family, just 3 friends, and 2 cups of hot coffee. Malcolm had looked into Amara's eyes that day and thought, I'll protect this. I'll never let anyone tear it down. But he let work chip away at their foundation, one late night at a time. The final fight happened in silence. Not yelling, not accusations, just 2 people sitting at opposite ends of a shared apartment, realizing they had become ghosts to each other. He never even knew she left for good. One morning, she just wasn't there. Her closet half empty. Her favorite mug gone. A single post-it note on the fridge. I loved you. But I need to love myself too. He hadn't heard from her since. 7 years, no calls, no social media, no breadcrumbs. She vanished so completely it was like she never existed. And he'd let her. The truth was, he didn't chase her. Not hard enough. His mother was pleased. Better to get that mistake behind you before the IPO, she had said. And like the obedient son, Malcolm stayed silent. He buried himself in EduLift, in quarterly reports, in keynote speeches, in photo ops, in becoming the man the world applauded. But now, standing on that stage, the world watching, he couldn't remember a single line from his speech. All he could see was a 5-year-old boy whispering something about dinosaurs to a woman Malcolm once vowed to protect. Had he missed his first words? His first day of school? Had someone else taught the boy to tie his shoes? The memory of Amara laughing in the lab rushed back, sharp and unforgiving. He remembered her saying, I don't need you to be rich, Malcolm. I just need you to show up. And he hadn't. Not then. Not for her. And now not for the son he never knew existed. The irony cut like a knife. Malcolm Reed, tech visionary, education reformer, billionaire builder of futures, had completely missed the one future that actually mattered. Malcolm didn't remember stepping down from the stage. He barely remembered mumbling something about a family emergency, or the confused applause that followed his sudden exit. All he remembered was the boy, the way he leaned into Amara, whispering, eyes wide at the sea of strangers in gowns and suits. The way he looked around the auditorium with a bored kind of curiosity only a 5-year-old could pull off. The way his curls bounced when he turned his head. The dimples. The eyes. His son. Malcolm pushed through the back doors of the hall, past a student volunteer calling after him, past the dean's assistant asking if he needed water. He didn't stop until he reached the main courtyard, where the sun painted the marble stairs gold and the world moved in slow motion. He scanned the crowd. Hundreds of families, laughter, hugs, gowns flying in the breeze, and then, there, Amara was walking fast, her back straight, her arm wrapped tightly around the child's shoulder. The boy struggled to keep up, taking 2 steps for every one of hers. "Amara!" Malcolm called out. She froze mid-step. Slowly she turned, their eyes locked across the courtyard. Malcolm could feel it in his chest, the weight of 7 years, crashing all at once. "Hello, Malcolm," she said quietly. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were tired. "Congratulations on your success." Malcolm took a step forward, then another. "Is he—" The words caught in his throat. Amara turned to the boy beside her. "Micah, say hello to Mr. Reed." The child looked up. "Hi," he said. "You're the man from the stage. Why did you stop talking?" Malcolm knelt down, trying to keep his voice steady. "I stopped because I saw your mom. And you. And I was surprised." Micah tilted his head. "Do you know my mom?" Before Malcolm could speak, Amara answered, her tone clipped. "Mr. Reed and I went to college together. We were friends." "Friends." That word hit harder than it should have. Malcolm stood, his voice lowered. "We need to talk." "Not here," she said. She looked around. Some parents were already staring, whispering. A student had pulled out a phone, filming. "When?" he asked. Amara hesitated. "We're staying at the Gardenia Hotel, room 408, tonight, 8 o'clock. She paused, then added, "Micah will be asleep." "I'll be there," Malcolm promised. The boy tugged on her sleeve. "I'm hungry." "We're going, sweetheart," Amara said. Then to Malcolm, "Don't bring anyone, no assistant, no PR team, and especially not your mother." She turned and walked away, Micah clutching her hand. Malcolm didn't move. His heart thundered, his palms shook. He felt both grounded and weightless, like something had just broken and something else had just begun. Behind him, a voice broke through. "Mr. Reed, why did you leave the stage?" a reporter asked, microphone extended. "Was that woman your wife?" He didn't answer, because he didn't know how. He had a son, a living, breathing, beautiful boy who looked just like him. And the mother he'd once loved enough to marry, who had vanished without a trace, was suddenly back, walking just out of reach. Tonight he would finally get the answers. But he already knew this much. Nothing in his life would ever be the same again. Malcolm Reed stood outside room 408 of the Gardenia Hotel, his hands clenched, his heart pounding against his ribs like it wanted to escape. It was 7:59 p.m., 1 minute before everything he thought he knew would change. For a man who'd delivered keynotes in front of presidents and been grilled by Wall Street journalists, this, standing in a quiet hotel hallway, about to face the woman he once loved, was somehow more terrifying than anything else. He raised his hand and knocked. Once, twice. The door opened. Amara stood there, dressed simply. Jeans, a soft sweater, no makeup, no armor. But her eyes were sharper than ever. "Come in," she said. Malcolm stepped inside. The suite smelled like lavender and children's shampoo. A dinosaur coloring book was open on the coffee table. A tiny pair of sneakers sat neatly by the door. "Micah's asleep," Amara said. "Let's keep our voices down." Malcolm nodded. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then he asked the only question that had consumed him since this morning. "Is he mine?" Amara crossed her arms. "You gave up the right to ask that the day you let your mother speak for you." "What?" Malcolm blinked. "What does my mother have to do with—" "Don't!" Amara cut him off. "Don't pretend you didn't know." "I didn't," Malcolm said, his voice rising before he caught himself. "Amara, I swear I had no idea." She sat on the edge of the couch, arms still crossed, body stiff like a wall. "Your mother came to see me the day after our divorce was finalized. She handed me a check for $500,000 and said, quote, 'Erase yourself from his life. It's the best thing for everyone.'" Malcolm staggered back a step. "She what?" "She said you wanted it this way," Amara continued, her voice brittle. That the marriage had been a mistake. That you needed a clean slate for the company and a wife from a better background down the line. Malcolm's stomach twisted. No, I never— I was pregnant, Malcolm. The words slammed into him like a freight train. I found out a week after the divorce, she said, softer now. I was going to tell you. I wrote the email. I never sent it. Because the next day your mother showed up. He stared at her, speechless. She told me if I kept the baby and tried to come back into your life, she'd destroy me in court. She said the Reed name would never be tied to scandal, that she'd make sure I never saw a dime of child support, and she had lawyers on standby. She threatened you? Malcolm whispered. She didn't need to, Amara replied. She had power, and I didn't. Malcolm slowly sat down on the armchair across from her, like his legs had finally given out. I swear to you, Amara, I didn't know. I didn't know any of this. If I had— God, if I had known— But you didn't ask, she said, looking him straight in the eye. You never looked for me, not once. I didn't know how, he admitted, ashamed. You cut off everything, changed your number, your email. There was nothing left. I did that to survive, she said, to protect Micah. I moved to Philadelphia, taught at a community college, raised him with what I had. I should have tried harder, Malcolm said, voice breaking. Yes, Amara said simply. You should have. The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Why did you come back? He asked finally. Why today? Amara hesitated. Mike has been asking about his father, more and more lately. I kept it vague, told him his dad lived far away, that he was smart. But kids aren't stupid. He sees other families. He asks questions. So you brought him to— what? See me from a distance? No, she said. We're moving to Boston. I took a teaching post at MIT. I knew we'd run into you eventually. Tech circles, media, everything. When I saw the press release about the Princeton ceremony, I decided it was better if I controlled the first encounter. Malcolm nodded slowly. Does he know who I am? Not yet, Amara said. Right now you're the man from the stage who stopped talking, that's all. He laughed, a sound full of disbelief and heartbreak. The man who stopped talking. He's observant, she said. Gets that from both of us. Silence again. Then, from the bedroom, a sleepy voice. Mom? Who are you talking to? They both turned. Micah stood in the doorway, pajama top, slightly crooked, hair sticking up like a halo of curls. He blinked at the light. I heard voices, he said. Amara walked over and gently knelt beside him. It's okay, sweetheart. You're okay. Just go back to bed. Can Mr. Reed read me a story? He asked, surprising them both. He talks funny when he reads. Malcolm looked at Amara. She hesitated. Then she nodded. One short story. Malcolm stood, his hands trembling. It would be the first time he ever read to his son. Malcolm followed Micah into the small bedroom with careful steps, like a man entering sacred ground. The room smelled like clean laundry and baby shampoo. A nightlight in the corner cast a soft glow shaped like a crescent moon. A stuffed dinosaur sat proudly at the foot of the bed, wearing a tiny paper crown. Micah climbed under the blanket, which had colorful rockets and planets stitched into it. His curls peeked out from beneath the edge of the comforter. That one. He pointed to a book on the nightstand. Malcolm reached for it. The Brave Little Robot. He froze. I used to love this book, he said quietly. Me too, Micah grinned. Mom says the robot reminds her of someone she used to know. Malcolm's chest tightened. I think it reminds me of someone too. He sat on the edge of the bed, his hand trembling slightly as he opened the first page. Once upon a time, he began, his voice low, steady. There was a little robot who wasn't very big, or very strong, or very fast. But he had something no one else had. A big heart, Micah whispered, smiling. Malcolm paused, swallowing the lump in his throat. That's right, a big heart. As he read, Micah listened closely, eyes wide, clutching the stuffed dinosaur to his chest. With each page, Malcolm let go, of his fear, of his guilt, of the years lost. He read with voices, sound effects, silly tones. Micah giggled when the robot made boop-beep-boop noises and gasped when the dragon appeared in the story's climax. By the time the little robot found the courage to rescue the princess, Micah's eyelids were heavy. Malcolm slowed his voice, softer now, like a blanket wrapping around a memory. And the robot realized, he read, that being brave didn't mean not being scared. It meant doing the right thing, even when you were. He closed the book. Micah was asleep, completely still, except for the quiet rise and fall of his chest. Malcolm stayed there, unmoving, just watching him. A few stray curls had fallen across the boy's forehead. He brushed them back gently, fingertips barely grazing the soft skin. How many moments like this had he missed? The first laugh, the first walk, the first word. He hadn't been there for any of it, but he was here now, and somehow that mattered more than he thought it would. He stood up slowly, turned off the night light, and stepped out into the living room. Amara was waiting on the sofa, a glass of water in her hands. She looked up as he entered. He fell asleep, Malcolm said unnecessarily. He always does, she replied. Right when the robot saves the princess. He smiled faintly. It's a good story. She nodded. You read it well. I used to dream of reading bedtime stories to my kid, Malcolm said softly. I just never thought my first time would be at a hotel 7 years late. Amara didn't respond. I want to be in his life, he continued. Whatever it takes. You said that before, she said. But being a parent isn't about grand gestures. It's about consistency. I know. You don't get to disappear again. I won't. They sat in silence for a few seconds. Can I ask something? He said. She glanced at him. Sure. When he calls me Mr. Reed, does it confuse him? That we're strangers, but not? Amara took a slow sip of water. He doesn't understand all of it yet, she said. I wanted to wait until he felt safe, until he trusted you. And now? She sighed. You made a good impression tonight. He likes you. Malcolm smiled, something blooming in his chest. But liking someone isn't the same as knowing them, Amara added. That takes time. You don't get to be his dad just because of biology. I understand, he said. I want to earn it. She looked at him for a long moment, as if weighing not his words, but his soul. Finally, she said, You can visit us again tomorrow, just you, no cameras, no headlines, just time. I'll be there, Malcolm said without hesitation. Amara stood and walked him to the door. Just before he stepped out, she added, Micah wants to go to the Science Museum this weekend. They've got a new dinosaur exhibit. He smiled. I love dinosaurs. I know, she said, finally smiling back. So does he. And for the first time in a very long time, Malcolm felt something shift, something settle. Not like triumph, but like home. The air outside the New England Museum of Science was crisp, touched with the early signs of fall. Families strolled past with strollers and hot cocoa, leaves crunching underfoot. For the first time in years, Malcolm Reed wasn't checking emails, pacing on a call, or rushing to another speaking engagement. He was standing beside a 5-year-old boy, his son, waiting in line to see an animatronic triceratops. Micah tugged at his sleeve. You're really tall, Malcolm chuckled. That's the first thing you noticed? No, Micah said, dead serious. The first thing I noticed was your shoes. They're really shiny. Perks of being an adult, Malcolm said. But yours light up. That's way cooler. Micah grinned and stomped both feet so the lights blinked red and blue. They make me faster. I believe you. Amara stood a few feet away, watching with quiet amusement. She hadn't said much since they'd arrived, but Malcolm could tell. She was observing everything. Every word. Every gesture. He didn't blame her. They entered the exhibit, and Micah's eyes widened at the towering skeletons and roaring animatronics. It's alive, Micah shouted, pointing at a moving T-Rex that turned its head, and let out a mechanical growl. Other kids squealed. Micah reached for Malcolm's hand without thinking. Malcolm didn't flinch. He held on, tight. Amara noticed. For the next hour, they walked through the exhibit together. Micah chattered non-stop about herbivores and carnivores, mimicking dinosaur roars, dragging Malcolm from one display to the next. Malcolm listened, asked questions, laughed when Micah made a velociraptor face. He didn't check his phone once, not even when it buzzed in his pocket for the third time. "Dad?" The word hit Malcolm like a lightning strike. He looked down. Micah was pointing at a model of a dinosaur nest. "Why did all the baby dinosaurs stay in the same nest?" Malcolm blinked, recovering. Because that's where they felt safe." Micah nodded. "Like me in my bed." "Exactly." Amara, a few feet behind, had frozen when she heard the word Dad. She didn't correct him. Neither did Malcolm. He let the moment hang, unspoken, sacred. They stopped at the museum cafe for lunch. Grilled cheese for Micah, black coffee and turkey sandwiches for the adults. "Are you still famous?" Micah asked in between bites. Malcolm smiled. "Sort of. Like on TV?" "Sometimes. Can I be famous too?" "If you want to. But it's more important to be kind than to be known." Micah nodded, then asked, "Are you going to come again next week?" Malcolm glanced at Amara, waiting for a cue. She nodded once, cautiously. "If your mom says it's okay," Malcolm said. "Okay," Micah grinned. "Can we go to the planetarium next time? I want to see Saturn." "Saturn it is." They threw away their trash and made their way toward the exit. Malcolm carried a museum gift shop bag. Inside was a plush stegosaurus and a science activity book Micah had begged for. He hadn't hesitated. Outside, the sidewalk was still bustling with families. Then, Malcolm noticed it. A man across the street, sunglasses, a long lens camera. He turned just as the shutter clicked. Amara saw it, too. Her body stiffened instantly. "Is that—" "Paparazzi," Malcolm muttered, stepping in front of Micah instinctively. "I'm sorry. I should have expected it." Micah looked up, confused. "Why is that man taking pictures of us?" "Because some grown-ups forget how to mind their own business," Amara said tightly, already reaching for Micah's hand. "Let's go," Malcolm said. "There's a back entrance near the planetarium." They moved quickly, heads down, slipping through the side path and out of sight. Behind them, the photographer kept clicking. Later, in the car, Micah had fallen asleep in the back seat, clutching the stegosaurus to his chest. Amara sat silently in the passenger seat, her jaw tight. "I'm so sorry," Malcolm said, hands gripping the wheel. "I didn't know they'd follow me here." "This is exactly what I didn't want for him." "I know. He's 5, Malcolm, not a headline. I'll call my legal team, get the photos pulled. They'll still be out there once it's online." She broke off, exasperated. "I can do better," Malcolm said. "Next time we'll use my building, underground garage, no visibility." "Next time?" Amara looked at him. "If there is one." She didn't reply, but she didn't say no. By sunrise the next morning, it was everywhere. Micah's photo, standing in front of a T-Rex skeleton, holding Malcolm Reed's hand, was on the homepage of 3 gossip blogs, 2 tech sites, and a Reddit thread with thousands of upvotes titled, "Is this Malcolm Reed's secret kid?" One headline read, "Billionaire CEO goes public with mystery family at Science Museum." Another, "Revealed. Malcolm Reed's black ex and their alleged love child." And perhaps worst of all, Edu-Daddy, inside the private life of EdTech giant Malcolm Reed. Malcolm sat in his penthouse, staring at the glowing screen, jaw clenched. He hadn't slept. Calls were already flooding in, from board members, PR advisors, shareholders, even old college classmates who suddenly remembered they used to sit 2 rows behind him in Comp Sci 103. His phone buzzed again. "Vivian Reed, Mom." "Decline." "Buzz, Marcus, PR crisis team." "Decline." He was waiting for one call only. The one that finally came. Amara. Hey, he said quietly. You saw? She asked. Her voice was clipped, calm. But beneath it, he could hear the exhaustion. It's everywhere. I had 3 reporters knock on my apartment door before 9 a.m. Malcolm closed his eyes. I'm sorry. They asked Micah if he was the little dinosaur boy. He winced. Is he okay? He doesn't understand yet, but he knows I'm upset. That's enough to rattle him. Malcolm stood and began pacing. Let me fix this. Let me do something. You can't take it back, Malcolm. I can try. I'll do an exclusive. Set the record straight. Tell the truth before the vultures twist it worse. You think telling the truth will make them go away? No, but it will make it ours. There was silence on the other end. Then Amara said, If we do this, we do it on our terms, with a real journalist, no paparazzi. I know someone at the Times, trusted, respected. No photos of Micah, no details about his school, no location reveals. Of course. I want final approval before anything runs. Done. And I want your mother nowhere near it. Malcolm exhaled. Already handled. She's blocked. Another pause. Okay, Amara said. Let's meet tonight, after Micah's asleep. Later that evening, at Amara's apartment. The news was still running, on TV, Twitter, podcasts. Everyone had a take. Malcolm arrived with no bodyguard, no driver, just a folder and weary eyes. Come in, Amara said. Micah was asleep in the next room. They sat on opposite sides of the couch. I drafted the statement, Malcolm said, sliding her the folder. Amara read silently for a full 2 minutes. Then, You told them everything. I told them the truth. About your mother? She deserves it. You realize this could damage your brand? Then the brand was never worth building. Amara looked at him differently then. Really looked. Something had shifted in him. Not just guilt, not just regret. Something deeper. A man unlearning who he thought he had to be. Why now? She asked. Malcolm didn't hesitate. Because Micah deserves to know that I chose him. Not just in secret, not just on weekends, but out loud, in public, with my whole name on it. Amara blinked, surprised by the clarity in his tone. I want to be his dad, Malcolm continued. Not just at bedtime, not just when it's easy, but when it's messy, loud, complicated, real. And what happens when the board panics? They already did. I sent my resignation from public-facing duties this morning. I'm stepping back, staying in Boston. Amara was quiet for a long time. Finally, she said, I was offered a research fellowship at Oxford, 6 months. Malcolm's stomach dropped. And? I haven't answered yet. Why not? She stared at the closed bedroom door. Because of him. Because he likes you. Because, for the first time, he's starting to feel what it's like to have a dad. Malcolm swallowed. I'll fly to Oxford every weekend if I have to. She laughed once, a sad, surprised sound. You're serious? I'm not losing him. I've already lost too much time. Amara nodded slowly. I'll stay, she said at last. Boston is home, for now. Relief crashed through Malcolm like a wave. He didn't cry, but his chest ached with the pressure of 1,000 emotions finally releasing. We're not together, she reminded him. I know, but we're parents. Yes, Malcolm said, and that means everything. The next morning, the New York Times ran the headline. Malcolm Reed chooses family. My son matters more than my company. The response was electric. Comments poured in. Supportive, emotional, even cynical ones that admitted respect. The board issued a statement affirming Malcolm's role in the company as head of product innovation. Out of the spotlight, but still leading. Vivian Reed resigned from 2 charity boards. No statement. At 3:05 p.m., Malcolm stood at the edge of Micah's new schoolyard. The bell rang. Micah came bounding out, Stegosaurus backpack swinging. You came! He shouted. I promised I would, Malcolm said, kneeling down. Micah threw his arms around him. Malcolm held on. Tight. 1 month later, Malcolm Reed stood at the edge of Boston Commons on a chilly Saturday morning, a paper cup of hot chocolate in each hand. Micah came running toward him across the grass, his little legs pumping, a dinosaur hoodie bouncing with every step. "I beat Mom!" he shouted. Amara followed a few paces behind, scarf wrapped tight, smiling despite herself. "You had a head start." Micah skidded to a stop in front of Malcolm, eyes wide. "Did you get whipped cream?" "Of course." Malcolm grinned, handing him the cup. Micah took a sip. Then a huge whipped cream mustache bloomed across his face. "You look like a woolly mammoth," Malcolm laughed. "No, I'm a dinosaur with a mustache," Micah declared proudly. Amara reached them and accepted her cup with a nod. "Thanks." They sat together on a park bench beneath a maple tree, watching kids chase squirrels and kick soccer balls. For the first time in years, everything felt still, simple. Not perfect, not easy, but real. "I told my teacher I'm going to be a paleontologist," Micah announced, swinging his legs. "Like a dinosaur scientist." "I believe it," Malcolm said. "You're already halfway there. And guess what else?" "What?" "I told her I have a dad now, a real one." Malcolm's breath caught. Amara turned to her son gently. "Hey, honey." "It's okay," Malcolm interrupted, his voice soft. "You don't have to explain." But Micah wasn't confused. He wasn't unsure. He leaned against Malcolm's side and whispered, "I like saying it. It makes me feel strong." Malcolm closed his eyes for a second, steadying himself. Because nothing in his life, no billion-dollar acquisition, no front-page article, no standing ovation, had ever meant as much as this. Just that. Just being someone's dad. Later that afternoon, they returned to the connected apartments Malcolm had secretly purchased and renovated. What was once two separate lives now shared one joined wall, one shared entryway, and, slowly, one shared rhythm. Amara still had her own space, her own keys, her boundaries. But now, Malcolm's fridge had juice boxes. His bookshelf had dinosaur encyclopedias. And Micah's laughter echoed through both units like a song neither of them knew they'd been missing. After lunch, Malcolm sat at the table helping Micah sort plastic bones from a build-your-own T-Rex kit. Amara typed on her laptop nearby, preparing lectures for her next class at MIT. Micah held up a claw piece. "Where does this go?" Malcolm knelt beside him, showing him where to click it in. "Right here, see? That's the grip claw. It helps him hunt." "He doesn't need to hunt," Micah said. "He's safe. He lives with us now." Malcolm looked at him. "Yes," he said softly. "He's safe." That evening, as twilight fell over the city, they walked to the small park near the river. The sky was pink and gold, and Micah ran ahead, chasing shadows. Amara and Malcolm strolled a few steps behind, silence settling between them. Not uncomfortable, but full. "There's something I've been meaning to say," Malcolm said. She glanced sideways. "That's new." He smiled. "I used to talk a lot and say nothing. I'm trying to flip that." She waited. "I don't want to undo the past. I can't, but I want to build something new, with him, with you, even if it's not as partners, even if it's just—" He searched for the word. "A team," Amara finished. Malcolm nodded. "Yes, a team." They watched Micah hop between stepping stones. "You've changed," Amara said quietly. "Not completely, but you're present. That's new." "It's the only thing I never tried before," he replied. She laughed once. "Fair." They reached the swing set. Micah ran back and tugged on both their hands. "Can you both push me? At the same time?" Amara raised an eyebrow. "Teamwork?" Malcolm grinned. "Let's do it." They each grabbed one side of the swing and pulled back. 1, 2, 3, go. Micah soared forward, giggling into the wind, the sunset casting long shadows behind him. They pushed again, and again, and again. That night, back at home, Malcolm helped Micah into pajamas while Amara read the story. The three of them curled up on the couch with a blanket, a bowl of popcorn, and a movie Micah insisted was totally not scary, just medium scary. Halfway through, Micah leaned his head on Malcolm's shoulder. "Dad," he mumbled sleepily. "Yes. Promise you'll still be here tomorrow?" Malcolm swallowed. "I'll be here," he whispered, "as long as you want me to." Micah nodded and fell asleep. In the quiet that followed, Amara covered her son with the blanket and looked over at Malcolm. "You're really staying?" "I am." "You walked away once." "I won't again." Amara looked at him for a long moment, then, softly, almost to herself, "Then maybe this isn't an ending." Malcolm smiled. "No," he said. "It's the beginning of everything else. Maybe your story isn't as public. Maybe it doesn't involve billion-dollar companies, front-page headlines, or long-lost children. But still, maybe there's someone you haven't called in years, a promise you didn't keep, a version of yourself you walked away from, thinking you had more time. So ask yourself, if the past came knocking on your door tomorrow, would you run from it or fight to make it right? Because sometimes, what matters most isn't how the story started. It's what you're willing to do when you get a second chance. If this story moved you, if it made you feel anything, if it reminded you of someone you'd fight for, send it to them. Like it. Share it. Subscribe. Not for the algorithm, but because stories like this deserve to be seen. And maybe, just maybe, someone else needs that second chance too.